Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you 4 different sizes of the book fold card, which is a really cool little card. You've got your little 2 pages inside there for writing your messages, and obviously depending on the size of the card that you choose, these panels are going to change quite a bit. So it's worth having all of the measurements for all of these, and then you can pick and choose which dies or which stamp sets fit with them and make them accordingly. So what you'll see here is that it's a really sturdy little card. It stands up nicely, and the thickness of the end product will depend upon whether you've used cardstock or paper on the inside there for posting, but you still always get bulk in the middle, so be careful with that. So that's the A2 4¼ by 5½. This is 6 by 6, and you can see the panel size has changed quite a lot, and I've used paper with this one. So what you'll notice is when I fold it, it is really thin, but there is some bulk on the inside as well. But that's another size, and this is 7 by 5, and you can see you get more of a tall rectangular panel with this one. The other thing to know is I've done all of these with a 1-inch strip. It's really simple for you to change that 1 inch and come down another quarter, half, whatever you want. So if that suits your stamps or dies better, then by all means do that. Not a problem, and I'll explain that when we go through. And then finally the A4 or 8½ by 11, you get a much taller rectangular panel with this one, and it does, it's going to nearly hit the camera, but it's nice and tall and really easy to do. So like I say, use your card blanks as well. You don't have to make card blanks, but if there's a specific colour you want, then it's probably a little bit better too. Now let me just bring in the first one, and thanks to everyone that has liked, commented, subscribed to my channel and also shared it. I really do appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. So I hope you can see everything, because I've got quite a bit of stuff to come in today. So what you're going to start off with is your card base. Now like I say, 7 by 5 this is, so you can use a 7 by 5 card base. If not, and you want to use a colour cardstock, cut your own. 10 by 7, and then score it at 5 in the middle there. Fold it in half, and you've got your card base. So nice and simple to do, and I'm just using plain card because my channel is all about the know-how. Now what you'll notice is my inside bit is also 10 inches, and I do keep them the same most of the time unless I need to adjust it for easy maths, which I like. So this one's been cut down to 6 3/4, so you're always going to cut down 1/4 inch smaller in the height of the card. So the card, this is the height of the card, it opens this way. This is a 7-inch height, cut it at 6 3/4. That's going to be the rule for any size you do, should you want to adapt it. The next thing to do is you're going to score it into 4. So we've got 10 inches, so divided by 4 is 2½. So we've got 2½, 5, and then 7½. Okay, so that's that one. And then there is going to be another score here, which is at 1½, but I'll probably come back and do that once I've done the cutting. Now, I don't know if I can balance my cutter on here. If I can, that would be amazing. And I probably will, but don't do this at home. So don't try this at home. It sounds like it's dangerous. Okay, so this is where you do your 1 inch. Okay, so this is to get that 1 inch little panel that sticks out at the front. Now, like I say, if you want to, you can move it over and have it a bit bigger. It won't affect anything else I give you in measurement wise. So that's entirely up to you. But I'm going to keep them at 1 inch for all of the demonstrations so that it's consistent. So you start at 1½. And then you're going to cut from 1½ all the way down to 1 inch pass. So it's going to be 8½. So 1½ to 8½. And then you're going to move it along and have 1 inch on the other side. And we're going to do the same thing. So because it's already set up at 8½, I'll take it back to 1½. And I'm sat at quite an angle, so I may not be 100% accurate with that cutting point. It's best to stand over it and do it that way. So now I can go back to my scoreboard, and you can see the lines there. So 1½. Now you can use a ruler, a piece of card. Let's find a piece of card. Should have some here. And you could just guide down from 1½ like that, line it up, or use a ruler, and you know, and you're going to score between the cuts that you made at 1½ like that. Shouldn't be using that because that's my next demo. Get another bit out of this better. And then up here at 8 and turn it over because it's going to shine. And then at 8½, we can do the same thing. We can find where 8½ is, and then score between those cuts, which are there and there. So that's all you're doing. Where where you cut ends, let me lift it up and show you. So where you'll cut ends is where the score, that final score, gets done just between the cut lines. Everything else is just all the way down, the cauterizing that we did at the beginning. And then all you need to do is fold this end forward, okay, and then back like that. This end in, so we're getting mountains and valleys, we call them, if you're not aware of that term. So you've got two valleys on the outside, then a mountain, then a valley. And it's easier to sort of pull them this way and do it like that. Just be aware while you're doing this that you don't want these to bend. So this one is going to be a valley, a mountain and a valley, okay? And the same at the top or bottom, valley, mountain, valley. Now I would recommend that you don't decorate your cards at the front until the end, so that you make sure everything's run the right way, and then all this process, it doesn't matter how you're gluing it into the card, etc. So now we can just bring them all in, bring them all together and get them to go down. Move them against the board. I always like to butt up against an edge to get these all nice and straight, and then you would burnish them. And I only burnish them lightly because when they're in the card they might shift a little, so it's best to just wait and really give it a good burnish at the end. So I'm just going to take glue, because glue is definitely better for this, wet glue. Open up your card, and then you've got sort of like this, just this U or C shape edge, and you're just going to put glue all around the edges of that and there, and then run another one through the middle. And then we're going to pop that with a quarter, so where I cut it down 1/4 inch, probably sheet in the light in a minute. So we're just going to get that lined up so it looks good to the eye. Okay, so just let that drop so you can see now. So you can see there, I want a nice even border, like that. And I can bring this over and just glue this again. And it's best to wait for that one to dry before you try and attach this one, okay? It will just make your life a lot easier. So then I just take this over and line it up and make myself a nice even border. And that's why we cut it down shorter, because then we don't have to do mats in layers, you see. And if you use pretty papers on the inside, it looks really nice. So just give that a rub down. Make sure it's stuck. I'm just going to rub it again. Doesn't it look nice like that though? That could be a really cool pop-up card, couldn't it? That way. So you could have it that way if you wanted to. And then just push it all down together. And now I will burnish, because I'm going to be covering the front of my card should I get any lines through it. And there you've got your first book cards. This is your 7x5 book card. Now these panels, if you want to do mats and layers on the inside of them, they're all going to be the same height. So they're all going to be 4.5 high. So if you cut a width of paper that will cover all 4 of those, this one's 2.25 wide and this one's 3/4. So these are always going to be 3/4 because they're that inch, unless you decide to change it. So 3/4 inch, 2.25, 2.25, 3/4. Add that up by 4.5, and then you can slice it all up into little pieces to make your mats and layers. So that's our first one done. And now we're going to move on to our second one, which is our A2, or our 4.25 by 5.5. So if you're going to use your own, if you're not going to use a card blank and you're going to use your own card, cut it down to your 8.5, well, your 8.5 will be the width, and then cut it down to 5.5. So you've got your 8.5 by 5.5, fold it in half at 4.25, give it a burnish, and then you've got a card blank. And then we've got our insert. Now my insert for this one, I've cut down quite a bit more than the others. So this is 8 inches by 5.25. So it's always, like I say, 1/4 inch smaller than the height. Height is 5.5. This is now 5.25. And then I've cut this down to 8 because I just want easy maths on this one. So again, we have to put it into 4. So it's 2, 4, 6. 2, 4 and 6 like that. Then I need to bring in my trimmer, and we're going to do that cut. So we line it up at 1 inch, and we're going to cut from 1 to 7. Okay, so we're just going to line 1 inch, and we're going to cut from 1 down to 7 like that. and the same on the other side. Line up 1 inch, cut from 1 to 7, like so. Then we go back to our scoreboard, and we literally just need to score between those 2 lines because we haven't got a score there yet. Collapsed everything there. So just score from 1. Like I say, you can use your card or do it by eye. Sometimes I'll just guide very, very lightly down and then make a harsh score line there. Again, we're going to do our fold, so we're going to pull it into us and then push it away from us to get our valley, pull it into us, push it away and pull it in. And then I never fully do these ones because, like I say, I'm worried about these making their own way or even creasing. So valleys, mountains, valleys, valley, mountain, valley, and then it should all just pull in together. So just do concertina it up, bring it over like so, just check it's all lined up as good as can be, and then, not like I say, don't rub it too hard because it may move when you put it in your card. So again, just go around this like C shape, just around the outside and up through the middle, and then get your border nice and even around the edge, and then rub it down, wait for the glue to dry, and then do the other side. But I can't, otherwise you'll be bored. I don't want you getting bored, guys. I hope you're enjoying all these tutorials and you're finding them easy enough to follow. I do like to just give you the know-how and take all the difficulty out of these cards, because I remember when I started card making 20 odd years ago, I really wanted to know how to make all these dimensional cards because they're so much better, aren't they? More of a wow. We love a wow. And then we can just put it all together again like that, and then give it a squash down. Make sure your glue's dry before you do this though, and then that'll just reinforce them where you really want them to stay. So there's our little A2 one. So it's all very much similar, it's just little bits of different dimension. Oh yeah, sorry, I need to tell you about the sizes of these panels. So to make your mats in layers, again, they're going to be 3/4 wide on the edges, and then they're 1 3/4 panel on the inside to have that 1/4 inch border. But in height, they're 3. Okay, so they're 3 by 1 3/4, 3 by 3/4. Okay, now if you use pattern paper and, like I say, coloured card, then that way everything else is decorated and you don't have to mat and layer all these funny shapes. So that's that one. And then moving on, I've got 6 by 6 next. So again, you're going to need 12 by 12 inch cardstock for this, and what I've done, I think, yeah, I used reversible cards. So I've got the cardstock going one way and then I've got the insert going the other. So these are both 12 inch wide. This one's 6 high, this is 5 3/4. So obviously score it in 6, and that will give you your fold on the inside like this, and that's made my card blank. And like I said, you can use pre-made card blanks if you want. And then this one we're going to do into 4 again, so that's going to be 3, 6 and 9. 3, 6 and 9 gives us 3 inch panels like that. Then we do our cut. So we've got our 1 inch. So our 1 inch border. And like I say, you can change the size of this border. It's not going to affect anything else apart from the measurements I give you for the panels. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to cut it obviously 1 inch smaller, so it's going to go from 2 to 10 because it was at 3 and 9, the edge ones. So the edge was 3 and 9, so you go 1 inch back, 1, 9, 1 inch back. So 2 and 10, I think it is. 2 to 10, 2 to 10, 3 and 9, 2 to 10. And then I might turn it that way. I don't know why I didn't do that earlier, because it's a lot easier to have more room to hold your card. So 1, 2 to 10, there we go, 1 inch. Then we go back to our scoreboard, and between those cut lines, which are 2 and 10, because that's where we cut, we're going to just do the middle score and we're going to go down. So you've got your cut lines as a guide as well. If you can see them, then it's a lot easier to do that, and then lining up cards and rulers, etc., and running your card down. And again, we're going to pull it towards us, and I know you get a bit of a shadow because of my light. So pull it towards us, push it away, down, up, down. So however you want to remember it, mountains, valleys, forward, backwards, it's entirely up to you. And then these ones, valley, mountain, mountain, valley, valley. And then we're going to put this inside of our card, and as you'll see, I've reversed the pattern. So double-sided paper is really nice to do, and that's what I used on most of my cards that I made. Not all, but most, because it just gives that contrast that they've you know, designed for you, really. At the end of the day, you don't have to think about it too much, do you? So just going to line that up. We've got our 1/4 of an inch smaller, so we just need to make that 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Just make it look even. And it may not dry as well, this cardstock, because it's got a little bit of a sheen to it. So I've got to be careful I don't move that too much. Just hold it in place. Might pull these over. Come in. There we go. Because they're not really, it's a little bit harder, so I'm just going to pull it down first. Give it a little bit of a squidge. Don't want it to move too much when I fold the card up. And then we line it up at the other end, get that even border. You can see it's quite a lot more slippery, this card, so it would normally take a little bit longer to dry. So just make sure you give it a good old rub. Get it stuck down. And pull that one towards, and all the others come in. And now you can burnish. And then you can go back in on the inside, you know, if you've got thicker cardstock, put your score tool underneath and grab all those little areas, these. So you can see there, you've got your 6 by 6 inch card, and you've got your panels, which measure 3.5 high by 2 3/4. So this would be 3.5 high by 3/4. So 3.5 high, 2 3/4 wide to cut your panels down. Okay, and finally our largest card, which is going to be our A4 or 8.5 by 11. So if you've got 8.5 by 11, then obviously you would score it at 5 1/4. But we're gonna, no, sorry, 5.5. But I've got A4 here, so it's actually it's a little bit out, really. It's slightly off, but the nearest dimension is 5 7/8 with A4 if you're doing your own card. And then you just fold it in half. So the only difference here is I'll give you 2 measurements, because 8.5 by 11. So if you're doing 8.5 by 11, then the inside stays at 11 for both cards. Okay, we are cutting down the A4 quite a lot because of maths. Okay, so it would be normally 11 3/4, but I'm actually knocking 3/4 of it off, and that also suits really well for your 8.5 by 11 people out there, because you're keeping it at 11 and it'll fit. And the only difference is the height. So A4 is 8 1/4, so I've cut it down to 8, but 8.5 by 11 is obviously 8.5, so you'll cut this to 8 1/4. Okay, and that's the only difference. Just move that out of the light a little bit, it's catching the light. So because we've got 11, it's going to make my maths a little bit easier now, because before it would have been a bit hard. So, and also maybe I've gone into 16ths and stuff from that and then layering. So 2 3/4, 5.5, 8 1/4. Okay, and then what we're going to do is bring in our board, our trimmer, line it up for 1 inch again, and then on this one you're going back an inch. We started at 2 3/4, so we're going to start at 1 3/4, and we're going to go all the way down here to 8.5. I think it is. Let me just check. 8 1/4. Sorry. No, 9 1/4. What am I talking about? As an inch. Ignore that. 1 3/4 to 9 1/4. And then an inch on the other side, and I should have spun it around, but I've done this now. So 9 1/4, 1 3/4 back, like that. Then we have to do our scoring between the cuts. So that's it, 1 3/4 there between the cuts, and then at 9 1/4, which is there between the cuts. So it's all really simple, isn't it? It's all the same kind of measuring, so you can do lots of different shapes. Sorry about the card being in the way, but it's quite a tall one, this. So mountain, valley, mountain, you've probably got the hang of it by now. Valley, a bit worried about this one because it's bigger, that those 1 inch bits want to move because this paper isn't that strong. Got to move them now actually. So let's go. Valley, mountain, valley. If they start like getting a little bit temperamental, then fold them in first. There we go. So just bring it all in. Give it a squash, but not a firm burnish, because it could move, like I say. And then obviously this was 11, but you can still make that, you know, border. It doesn't affect where it sits forward or back of the card. So that's the really good thing about it. You could even have it right at the back there, but what that means is your fold won't open very much. So that's why they come right out. Okay, like that. And the other thing to remember is when you're putting these in, once they're in, you can't really decorate them very well. So in a way, it's best to get your panels decorated and then glue them in. You wouldn't be able to stamp on this, for instance. It'd be quite difficult because you'd have to fold it down and this would all be in the way, and then you'd have bulk underneath, so you wouldn't get a clear image. So do your stamping and everything on your panels that you're going to be inserting, and I'll give you the sizes of those in a second. So again, we just need to run our glue along, like so, all up through the middle, and then give ourselves that little border that we want. So our little 1/8 border, and I always do everything by eye. Even if it's out slightly, people are not going to notice, trust me. They don't, not unless it's like really bad. But if it's a tiny little bit, people just don't notice. I'm more interested in the beautiful card they've got. They didn't expect to have on the inside. I do like it when you get a bit of a surprise on the inside. You have these beautifully decorated cards on the outside, and then you open them up, and some people don't put inserts in the card, so an insert always adds a little bit more interest. And then again, we can just go up here and get our 1/8 of an inch border lined up there. Whoops. Like that. Get it to stick down quite well. Then make sure these are pulled forward, these bits, and these bits. And then, now we burnish. And I'm going to go on the inside here as well. And this side. And there we go. So that's our final card. So you can see this one doesn't open fully because I made it quite a bit smaller. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't open any more than that. You've got that big gap there. But it's fine. It doesn't affect the way it works. I've just stretched it open. That's why it's done that. So the panels will be very slightly different. So I'll give you the A4 ones first because that's the card size that I've made. So the panels for this would be 2.5 wide by 5 3/4 high. So that's obviously going to be 5 3/4 by 2.5. Now with your 8.5 by 11, it's 1/4 of an inch bigger. So you just need to make those 2 3/4, sorry, 6. It'll still be the same width. So it'll be 2.5 wide, 3 1/4 wide, but 6 high. Okay, that's the only difference. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye-bye.